The whispers started at my wedding. I could hear them between the clinks of champagne glasses and forced laughter. Gold digger, trophy wife, daddy issues. I'm Layla, and at 32, I married the love of my life, who happened to be 35 years my senior. The judgment in people's eyes burned, but Charles' warm hand in mine was all that mattered. Did you see her dress? Probably cost more than my car. I overheard Harvey mutter to Sterling during our garden party 6 months later. The brothers huddled near the fountain, pretending to admire the roses Charles and I had planted together. Dad's lost his mind, Riker chimed in, swirling his whiskey. She's barely older than us. I busied myself arranging appetizers, pretending not to notice. Charles appeared behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. They'll come around, my dear, he whispered, but his voice carried the same wheeze that had been worrying me for weeks. Charles, maybe you should sit down. You're looking pale. I guided him to a nearby chair, earning eye rolls from his sons. Playing nurse already? Riker approached, his designer shoes crushing our freshly laid mulch. Practicing for when he's bedridden? That's enough. Charles's voice, though weakened, still commanded respect. Layla is my wife, and you will treat her accordingly. The party continued with artificial pleasantries, but I couldn't shake the chill of Riker's words. Later that evening, I found Charles in his study, reviewing documents with Patricia, his lawyer and longtime friend. Everything's in order, Patricia assured him, catching my eye with a knowing smile. The video recording is complete, and the papers are filed. Video recording? I asked, setting down Charles' evening tea. Charles reached for my hand. Just ensuring our future is secure, my love. You know how particular I am about details. A coughing fit seized him, and I rushed to his side with water. Through the study's window, I spotted Riker and Harvey in intense conversation by their cars, heads bent together like conspirators. I don't trust them, Yvonne, my best friend, said later that night over the phone. The way they look at you, Layla, it's predatory. Charles trusts me, I replied, watching him sleep peacefully beside me. That's all that matters. But the next morning, I discovered a printed email in Charles's printer tray. It was from Riker to his brothers. We need to act soon. Dad's health is declining faster than expected. That little gold digger won't know what hit her. My hands trembled as I read it. Charles stirred in his sleep, and I quickly tucked the email into my drawer. The man I loved was dying. I could see it in his increasingly fragile movements, hear it in his labored breathing. His sons were circling like vultures, but I wouldn't let them destroy what we had built. I made an appointment with Dr. Matthews, I told Charles over breakfast. Your cough is getting worse. Ha, always taking care of me, he smiled, reaching across the table. His hand trembled slightly. That's why I fell in love with you, Layla. Your heart. Sterling appeared in the doorway, his expression darkening at our intimate moment. The board meeting starts in an hour, Dad, if you're feeling up to it. Of course. Charles stood, swaying slightly. I steadied him, earning a glare from Sterling. I can drive you, I offered. He doesn't need a babysitter, Sterling snapped. No, but I'd like my wife's company. Charles kissed my cheek, and we left Sterling seething in the doorway. In the car, Charles's breathing grew more labored. Promise me something, he said, taking my hand. Promise you'll stay strong, no matter what happens. Charles, don't. Promise me, Layla. They'll try to break you, but you're stronger than they know. Patricia has everything ready. I squeezed his hand, fighting back tears. I promise. That evening, I overheard the brothers in Charles's study. The will reading will be our chance, Harvey was saying. She won't see it coming. I pressed my back against the wall, heart pounding. They were planning something, but what? Charles's words echoed in my mind. You're stronger than they know. Little did they realize, their father had prepared for this very moment. As I watched them leave the study, heads held high with unearned confidence, I thought about the video Patricia mentioned. Whatever storm was coming, I would weather it, not just for myself, but for the man who saw past the whispers and loved me for who I really was. The call came at 3:47 a.m. Charles had been struggling to breathe, and I'd finally convinced him to let me take him to the hospital. I held his hand as the machines beeped around us, their rhythm a countdown I wasn't ready to accept. "I love you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Remember what we discussed." Those were his last words. The flatline tone pierced the quiet room, and my world collapsed. I barely registered the nurses rushing in or being guided to the hallway. My husband was gone. "Well, isn't this convenient?" Riker's voice cut through my grief hours later. He stood in the hospital corridor, Harvey and Sterling flanking him like bodyguards. Alone with him when it happened. "Don't you dare," I warned, my voice raw from crying. "Don't you dare make this about money right now." "Everything's about money with you, isn't it?" Sterling sneered. Patricia arrived before I could respond, her heels clicking purposefully down the hallway. "Boys, this is hardly the time or place. Your father just passed away." "Our father," Harvey emphasized, whom she manipulated until his dying breath. 3 days later, we gathered at the house for what was supposed to be a family dinner before the funeral. The tension could have been cut with a knife. "When's the will reading?" Riker demanded, stabbing at his untouched steak. "Your father's body isn't even cold," Patricia responded sharply. She'd stayed close since Charles's death, a buffer between me and the brothers' increasing hostility. "We have a right to know our inheritance," Harvey insisted, especially given the circumstances of his marriage. I set down my fork, the circumstances being that I loved him. "Oh, please," Sterling laughed coldly. "You loved his bank account. We all know it. The question is, how much did you manage to squeeze out of him before the end?" "That's enough." My brother Micah stood up so quickly, his chair toppled backward. "My sister just lost her husband. Show some respect." "Respect?" Riker scoffed. "Like she showed respect marrying our father when she's barely older than us?" I pushed away from the table, my hands shaking. In Charles' study, I found myself drawn to his desk. The familiar scent of his cologne still lingered. Opening the top drawer, I found an envelope with my name written in his distinctive handwriting. "Finding more assets to claim?" Sterling's voice made me jump. He stood in the doorway, watching me with undisguised contempt. "Get out," I said quietly, clutching the envelope. "This is our father's house. You're the one who needs to get out." "Actually," Patricia appeared behind him, "this is still Layla's house, at least until the will reading. I suggest you remember that." After they left, I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single note. "My dearest Layla, when the storm comes, remember the video. Trust Patricia. All my love, Charles." The video. The one they'd recorded in the study. What had Charles planned? "They're going to try to take everything," Yvonne said later that night, sitting with me in the kitchen. "You know that, right?" "Let them try." I pulled out Charles's note. He knew this would happen. He prepared for it. "Mrs. Wright?" Our housekeeper appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Riker is in the garage, going through Mr. Charles's files." I found him rifling through cabinets, papers scattered everywhere. Looking for something? He didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. "Just collecting what's mine." "Nothing is yours yet," I reminded him. "The will reading isn't until tomorrow." "You really think you've won, don't you?" He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height. "Think you've secured your future by seducing an old man." "I loved your father," I said firmly. "Something you clearly know nothing about." "Love?" He laughed. "Tomorrow you'll learn what really matters in this family. And it isn't love." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept reading Charles's note, thinking about the video he'd mentioned. Whatever was on it had given him confidence in my future. But his sons were ruthless, determined to paint me as a gold digger who'd taken advantage of their father. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Everything's ready for tomorrow. Charles made sure you'd be protected. Get some rest." I touched the empty side of the bed, where Charles should have been. "I promise I won't let them win." I whispered to the darkness. Whatever you planned, I'll see it through. The will reading was set for 10 a.m. In less than 12 hours, I'd find out exactly what Charles had done to protect me from his son's greed. And something told me they weren't going to like it one bit. Patricia's office felt smaller, with all of us crammed inside. Riker lounged in a leather chair like he already owned the place, while Harvey and Sterling stood near the window, whispering. My brother Micah sat beside me, his presence steadying. Before we begin, Patricia said, arranging documents on her desk, there's a video message from Charles that he wanted played first. A video? Harvey straightened. That wasn't mentioned before. There's a lot you don't know, Patricia replied coolly, reaching for her laptop. Wait, Riker interrupted. We should have our lawyer present for this. Your father's instructions were explicit, Patricia said. Just family and myself. If you'd prefer to leave. Play it, I said quietly. My heart hammered against my ribs as Patricia connected her laptop to the wall-mounted screen. This is ridiculous, Sterling muttered. She probably coerced him into making this video when he wasn't thinking clearly. Your father was of sound mind until the end, Patricia snapped, as his medical records will attest. The screen flickered to life, and there was Charles, sitting in his study. He looked healthy in the video, recorded just 2 months ago. My throat tightened at the sight of him. If you're watching this, he began, I'm no longer with you, and I imagine my sons are already circling like sharks. Riker shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I've watched you boys, Charles continued. Watched how you've treated Layla from the day I introduced her. Your contempt, your assumptions, your cruel whispers when you thought I couldn't hear. But I heard everything. Harvey's face reddened. Sterling looked away. You see, I've made some decisions about my estate that you might not expect. Charles leaned forward in the video. But before that, let me tell you a story about your inheritance. What inheritance? Riker interrupted. Can we skip to the actual will? Quiet, Patricia commanded. On screen, Charles pulled out 3 folders. These contain records of every loan I've given each of you. Riker, your failed tech startups. Harvey, your gambling debts. Sterling, your string of bad investments. I covered everything, hoping you'd learn from your mistakes. You didn't. The brothers exchanged panicked looks. Instead, Charles continued, you directed your bitterness at Layla, convinced she was after my money. The irony isn't lost on me. My brother squeezed my hand as tears rolled down my cheeks. Now, about my estate. Charles opened another folder. Patricia, please distribute the documents. Patricia handed each brother a thick envelope. Their hands shook as they opened them. These are loan repayment schedules, Charles explained. Every penny I've given you over the years, with interest, due immediately upon my death. This is insane! Harvey exploded, papers scattering across the floor. He can't do this. He can. And he did, Patricia said calmly. Keep watching. Layla, Charles's voice softened. My love, open the locked drawer in my study desk. The key is with Patricia. Patricia handed me a small silver key. We can pause. No, I said firmly. Let it play. In that drawer, Charles continued, you'll find documentation of every charitable foundation I've established in your name. While my sons were borrowing millions, you were helping me plan homeless shelters and scholarship programs. That's the difference between greed and love. Riker stood up so fast, his chair toppled backward. This is fraud. She manipulated him. Sit down, Patricia ordered. We're not finished. As for my actual estate, Charles said, I've left specific instructions with Patricia. But know this, those who showed kindness will find kindness in return. Those who showed only greed, he shrugged. Well, karma has a way of balancing the scales. The video ended. Silence filled the room. This isn't over, Sterling threatened, pointing at me. We'll contest it. You're welcome to try, Patricia said, pulling out more documents. Your father made everything legally binding, including those loan repayments. You planned this, Harvey accused me. You turned him against us. No. I stood up, finding strength in Charles's recorded words. You did that all by yourselves. The estate details, Patricia continued over their protests, will be disclosed once Layla opens that drawer. Shall we head to the house? As we left Patricia's office, I caught Riker making a furious phone call, probably to his lawyer. Harvey looked shell-shocked, while Sterling kept rereading his loan documents in disbelief. You okay? Micah asked quietly as we walked to our cars. I nodded, clutching the small silver key. Charles knew exactly what he was doing. He protected me in the best way possible, by letting them reveal who they truly are. The drive back to the house felt like the calm before a storm. Whatever waited in that locked drawer, I knew one thing for certain. Charles had just turned his son's greed into their downfall. The study still smelled like Charles. Standing before his desk, memories flooded back. Late nights discussing charity projects, morning coffee while he read the paper, stolen kisses between meetings. The silver key felt heavy in my hand. Get on with it, Riker demanded from the doorway. His lawyer had arrived, a sharp-faced woman who kept checking her phone. This is a private moment, Micah stepped between us. Private? In our father's house? Sterling scoffed. Patricia cleared her throat. Actually, about that ownership claim. She pulled out another document. Charles transferred the house deed to Layla 3 months ago. He what? Harvey snatched the paper. This can't be legal. Completely legal, Patricia smiled. Now, shall we proceed? My hands trembled as I inserted the key into the drawer. Inside lay a leather portfolio and a USB drive labeled, Watch Me First. Another video? Sterling groaned. How many recordings did he make? Patricia connected the USB to Charles's laptop. The screen flickered, showing Charles and me in this very study exactly 1 year ago. Is this recording? Charles asked someone off screen. Then to me, Layla, darling, tell me again about your idea for the women's shelter. I watched myself sit forward eagerly. The statistics show that financial dependency keeps women in dangerous situations. If we could provide not just housing, but job training, childcare. See how her eyes light up when discussing helping others? Charles turned to the camera. Not money, not status, just genuine desire to make a difference. Riker made a disgusted sound. Turn it off. This proves nothing. Keep watching, Patricia insisted. The video showed multiple clips spanning months. Me organizing fundraisers, visiting construction sites for the shelters, meeting with social workers. Charles narrating throughout, documenting my involvement in his charitable works. Why are we watching this? Harvey demanded. Because, Charles's voice grew stronger, this proves Layla's character. Every decision she helped make, every project she championed, was about helping others. While you three, he sighed. Well, let's review your contributions. The video shifted to security footage. Riker arguing with Charles about another failed startup. Harvey begging to cover gambling debts. Sterling demanding money for a sure-thing investment. Turn it off! Riker lunged for the laptop, but Micah blocked him. That's enough! The lawyer finally spoke up. This video seems deliberately edited to show the truth, Patricia finished. Now, Layla, the portfolio, please. Inside were detailed records of every charitable foundation Charles had established, with me listed as executive director. But there was more. Documentation of every loan his sons had taken, every failure they'd hidden, every scheme they'd attempted. Dad kept all this? Sterling whispered, face pale. Your father was meticulous, Patricia said. He knew exactly who you all were. Now, about the estate distribution. Wait, I interrupted, finding one last envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. My dearest Layla, I read aloud, my voice shaking. If they're watching, let them hear this. You never asked for my money. You asked for my love, my trust, my partnership in making the world better. That's why I'm leaving you not just the house, but control of all my charitable foundations. You'll continue the work we started together. Riker's lawyer was frantically flipping through papers. This can't be binding. Oh, but it is, Patricia smiled. As for you boys, your father left you each exactly $1, plus those loan repayment schedules, of course. $1? Harvey's legs gave out, and he sank into a chair. That's impossible. The rest, I continued reading, will fund the foundations we built together. And one new project, a support system for women falsely labeled as gold diggers, who genuinely love partners despite age differences. Because love, real love, isn't about money. It's about making the world better together. Sterling stormed out. Riker followed, dragging his useless lawyer along. Harvey just sat there, staring at nothing. Charles recorded everything, Patricia explained softly. Every cruel comment, every scheme they planned. He knew they'd try to paint you as a gold digger, so he spent the last year building an airtight case proving otherwise. I touched the screen where Charles's face was frozen, smiling at me. He knew them better than they knew themselves. The foundations are yours now, Patricia said. All of them. You're in charge of his entire charitable legacy. Harvey finally stood. This isn't over, he threatened weakly, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, I picked up the portfolio, it is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. These foundations won't run themselves. As they left, I sat in Charles's chair, surrounded by evidence of our shared vision. He hadn't just protected me, he'd empowered me to continue our mission. And somehow, that felt like the greatest inheritance of all. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Riker's name flashed on the screen for the 20th time. You should answer it, Yvonne said, helping me sort through foundation documents. Get it over with. I picked up on the 21st ring. What? We need to talk. Riker's voice was strained. Face to face, all of us. There's nothing to discuss. 1 million each, he said quickly. That's our offer. We'll drop any legal challenges if you give us 1 million each from the foundation funds. I laughed. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. 2 million then. Come on, Layla, be reasonable. Meeting's in an hour, I said. Patricia's office. Bring your brothers. Patricia had coffee waiting when we arrived. The brothers looked terrible. Sterling's designer suit was wrinkled, Harvey's eyes were bloodshot, and Riker's usual arrogance had deflated into desperation. Before you start, I held up my hand. There's one last video you need to see. God, not another one, Sterling groaned. Patricia pressed play. Charles appeared on screen, looking directly into the camera. Boys, if you're watching this, you've already tried to negotiate with Layla. Let me be clear. Every foundation dollar is legally protected. Every attempt to contest will only drain your own resources. Harvey slumped in his chair. But here's what you don't know, Charles continued. Those loan repayment schedules? They're due in full by the end of this month. If you fail to pay, everything you own becomes collateral. Your homes, cars, investments. Everything. He can't do that, Riker whispered. We never signed. Actually, Patricia pulled out 3 documents. You did. Remember those investment contracts you signed last year? Read the fine print. Sterling grabbed the papers, face growing pale. This is insane! We'll be ruined! Unless, Charles said on screen, you agree to Layla's terms. I sat forward. Here's the deal. You publicly apologize for your treatment of me. Admit your assumptions were wrong. Then, you'll each work for one of the foundations, unpaid, for 1 year. After that, your debts will be forgiven. Work? For free? Harvey looked horrified. At a charity? Manual labor, I specified. Building houses, serving at shelters, actually helping people for once in your lives. And if we refuse? Riker challenged. Then I call in the loans tomorrow, I shrugged. Your choice. The brothers huddled in the corner, whispered arguments growing heated. Finally, Riker turned back. We need time to think. You have 1 hour, Patricia said. After that, I start the paperwork to seize your assets. They fled the office, leaving their coffee untouched. Think they'll do it? Yvonne asked after they left. They have no choice, Patricia smiled. Charles made sure of that. He knew money was the only language they understood. My phone buzzed. A text from Sterling. "This is cruel," I replied. "Crueler than calling me a gold digger at my husband's funeral?" 58 minutes later, they returned. Riker looked like he'd aged 10 years. "Fine," he spat. "We'll do it. But we want something in writing saying our debts will be cleared after the year." "Already prepared." Patricia handed them contracts. "Sign here." As they signed, I pulled out my phone. "One more thing. The public apology? You're doing it now. Live on my Instagram." "You're enjoying this," Harvey accused. "Actually, I'm not," I said quietly. "I wish you'd seen me as family, seen how much I loved your father. Maybe then things would be different." Sterling looked away, something like shame crossing his face. One by one, they recorded their apologies. Riker went first, stiff but sincere enough. Harvey mumbled through his. But Sterling surprised me. "I was wrong," he said, looking directly at the camera. "Layla loved our father in a way we never did. Selflessly, completely. We were the ones who saw him as a bank account. I'm sorry." After they left, Patricia squeezed my shoulder. "Charles would be proud." "Tomorrow," I said, checking my calendar, "Riker starts work at the women's shelter. Harvey gets the homeless outreach program, and Sterling—" I smiled. "He'll be building houses in the summer heat." "Karma's a beautiful thing," Yvonne grinned. My phone buzzed with messages from their wives, their friends, their business associates, all reacting to the apology videos. The truth was finally out. That night, I sat in Charles's study, touching the frame of our wedding photo. "I did it," I whispered. "I made them see the truth. Not just about me, but about themselves. The foundations would continue. Lives would be changed. And 3 privileged men would learn the value of honest work and genuine service. It wasn't revenge. It was redemption. Just as Charles had planned all along. "You missed a spot," I said, watching Riker scrub the shelter's kitchen floor. His once manicured hands were red and raw from cleaning products. "This is humiliating," he muttered, dunking the brush back into the bucket. "More humiliating than trying to steal from charity?" Maria, the shelter's director, walked in with more cleaning supplies. "The bathroom needs attention next." It had been 2 weeks since the brothers started their mandatory community service. The transformation was slow but noticeable. My phone buzzed. A text from Harvey's supervisor at the homeless outreach program. "He actually showed up early today, still complaining, but he's learning." "Layla!" Sterling's voice called from outside. I walked out to find him shirtless, sweating under the summer sun, helping frame a new house. "Can we talk?" "Need a break already?" "No." He wiped his forehead. I met someone. The woman whose house we're building. Single mom, 3 kids, escaped an abusive marriage. She told me her story. I waited. Dad would have helped her, wouldn't he? Even before he met you? "Yes," I said softly. "He would have." "I never knew what these foundations actually did," Sterling admitted. "The real impact they have." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Patricia's number. "Turn on the news," she said without greeting. Now. Inside the shelter's office, I flipped on the TV. A reporter stood outside our main foundation building. Sources claim the Wright brothers are contesting their father's will again, this time alleging video tampering and coercion. "What?" I spun to face Sterling. "Are you serious?" He looked genuinely shocked. "I didn't know about this. Must be Riker. He was meeting with lawyers last night." I stormed into the kitchen. Riker was gone. "He got a call and left 10 minutes ago," Maria reported. "Said it was an emergency." My phone exploded with notifications. Social media was already buzzing with the news, undoing all the progress from their public apologies. "Emergency foundation meeting," I texted Patricia. 1 hour. At the office, Harvey was waiting. "I had nothing to do with this," he said immediately. "The outreach program." It's changing how I see things. Save it, I snapped, just as Patricia arrived with a thick folder. Your brother, she said to Harvey, just made a huge mistake. Show them. She spread out documents across the conference table. Charles anticipated this. There's a clause in their contracts. Any legal challenge during their service year triggers immediate asset seizure. No warnings, no negotiations. Riker's going to lose everything, Harvey whispered. Unless you stop him, I said. Right now, Sterling burst in, still in his work clothes. I called his wife. She said he's meeting the lawyers at the courthouse in 20 minutes. Then what are we waiting for? Harvey grabbed his keys. We found Riker on the courthouse steps, surrounded by reporters. His lawyer was mid-speech about video manipulation and undue influence. Stop! Harvey's voice boomed across the plaza. Brother, you need to stop. Stay out of this, Riker hissed. Show him, I told Patricia. She handed Riker the clause documents. His face went from confident to terrified in seconds. It's not just you, Sterling said quietly. Think about Sarah, the kids. You'll lose everything. The foundations, Harvey added. They're actually helping people, Riker. Real people. Come back to the shelter. See for yourself. Reporters pressed closer, cameras rolling. Riker looked at his lawyer, then at me. If I drop this, you keep your assets, Patricia confirmed, but you finish your year of service. All of it. He closed his eyes, handed the papers back to his lawyer. Press conference canceled. No comment. The reporters groaned, but kept filming as Riker turned to me. I'm sorry, he said, loud enough for the cameras to catch. Again, for everything. Back at the shelter, Maria had him clean the bathrooms twice for disappearing. I watched him work, remembering Charles's words about redemption. Your father planned for everything, Patricia said, reviewing the contract clause. He knew Riker would try something like this. He knew his sons, I agreed, and he knew they needed this wake-up call. My phone buzzed. A message from the woman whose house Sterling was helping build. Your brother-in-law spent his lunch break playing catch with my kids. Whatever you're doing, it's working. That evening, I found Harvey sorting donations at the outreach center, long after his required hours. Why are you still here? I asked. He paused, holding a child's coat. Dad used to say money wasn't real wealth. I never understood that until now. I left him there, drove home to Charles, our house. In the study, I touched the photo of us on our wedding day. You were right, I whispered. Sometimes people need to lose everything to find what matters. The foundations would continue. And maybe, just maybe, 3 brothers would find their redemption in the process. 6 months into their service, the annual foundation gala arrived. I stood at the podium, surveying the crowd of donors and beneficiaries. Where's Riker? I whispered to Patricia. He was supposed to speak about his experience at the women's shelter. Running late, she checked her phone. Traffic. The doors burst open. Riker rushed in, but he wasn't alone. Sarah, one of the shelter residents he'd been working with, followed with her 2 small children. Sorry, he panted, reaching the stage. Sarah's babysitter canceled. I couldn't let her miss this. I blinked in surprise. The Riker I'd known 6 months ago wouldn't have cared. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the crowd, tonight we celebrate not just our foundation's achievements, but the power of transformation. I'd like to introduce Riker, who has a story to share. He approached the microphone, straightening his tie. 6 months ago, I thought I knew everything about wealth. I was wrong. His voice cracked. True wealth isn't in bank accounts. It's in the smile of a domestic violence survivor when she gets her first apartment. It's in her children feeling safe for the first time in years. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes, hugging her kids closer. My father knew this, Riker continued. He tried to teach us, but we were too blind to see, until now. Harvey stood up from his table. May I? He gestured to the microphone. Last week, Harvey said, taking the stage, a homeless veteran I've been working with got a job. When he told me, he hugged me and cried. Me, the guy who used to spend his father's money at casinos. That hug was worth more than any jackpot. Sterling joined them, still wearing his construction site boots. The house we finished today, it's for a family of 5 who've been living in their car. The youngest daughter asked if she could paint her room purple. He smiled. So I stayed late to help her do it. The crowd was silent, captivated. Our father, Riker's voice strengthened, married a woman who understood what he'd known all along, that true legacy isn't measured in dollars. Layla, he turned to me, we were wrong about you, completely wrong. Suddenly, Patricia rushed to the stage, whispering urgently in my ear. The lawyers found something in Charles' private vault. You need to see this now. In a back room, she played a video on her tablet. Charles appeared, looking frail but determined. If you're watching this, he said, my sons have completed at least 6 months of service. Patricia, show them the final document. She pulled out an envelope. Inside was a new will addendum. If they prove genuine change, Charles continued, if they demonstrate true understanding of our mission, they each receive a trust, not for themselves, but to establish their own charitable foundations. The brothers stared at the document in shock. Dad set this up? Sterling whispered. He never gave up on you, I said. He believed you could change. There's more. Patricia pointed to the screen. Layla, Charles smiled warmly, you'll oversee these trusts. Guide them. You've always understood what matters most. Help my sons understand, too. Riker grabbed my arm. Sarah's housing application. Could my foundation? The Veteran Employment Program, Harvey interrupted. I have ideas. Wait, I held up my hands. You have to complete the full year first. Prove this change is real. It is real, Sterling said quietly. That little girl's purple room? I'm going back tomorrow to help her decorate. Back in the gala, Sarah took the microphone. 6 months ago, I was terrified of men in suits. Then I met Riker, scrubbing toilets at the shelter. The crowd chuckled. He taught my son to tie his shoes, helped my daughter with homework. Small things that meant everything. Other beneficiaries stood up, sharing stories. The homeless veteran Harvey helped. The family moving into Sterling's latest house project. Charles Wright's legacy, Patricia addressed the crowd, isn't just in buildings or programs. It's in the transformation of his own family. Later that night, I found Riker in the shelter's playroom, reading a story to Sarah's kids. Harvey was planning a job fair with his veteran friends. Sterling had blueprints spread out, designing a playground for his next housing project. My phone buzzed, a message from Yvonne. Charles would be so proud right now. I watched the brothers, remembering Charles's words about karma and consequences. But this wasn't the karma of punishment. It was the karma of transformation. Dad knew exactly what he was doing, Sterling said, joining me. The money was never the real inheritance. No, I agreed. The real inheritance was this, the chance to become who you were meant to be. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Somewhere out there, more lives waited to be changed. And now, instead of 3 enemies, I had 3 partners in continuing Charles's true legacy. The final day of their mandatory service arrived with little fanfare. I found the brothers already at work. Riker organizing a job fair at the shelter, Harvey coordinating veteran housing placements, and Sterling supervising the completion of his 10th house. Ready for the final foundation meeting? Patricia asked, carrying a stack of folders into Charles's study. Almost. I touched the wedding photo on the desk. Just need to get something first. In the vault, behind Charles's old files, sat a small wooden box I'd never opened. Inside was a letter dated for this exact day, along with 3 identical envelopes. The brothers arrived looking different than they had a year ago. Gone were the designer suits and arrogant sneers. Riker's hands were calloused from honest work. Harvey's eyes held genuine compassion, and Sterling carried paint swatches for his next project. Before we discuss your trusts, I placed the envelopes before them. Your father left these for today. They opened them simultaneously. Inside each was a photo, Charles holding them as babies, along with handwritten notes. My son, Riker read aloud, voice catching. Today you understand what I've always known. True wealth lies in what you give, not what you take. Harvey wiped his eyes. I never stopped believing in you, even when you lost your way. Your mother would be proud of the man you've become, Sterling finished, hands shaking. Now, Patricia spread out the trust documents. Let's talk about your foundations. Actually, Riker interrupted, we have something to say first. He nodded to his brothers. Sarah's starting a counseling program for abuse survivors. I want my foundation to fund scholarships for women rebuilding their lives. Harvey leaned forward. The veterans taught me about brotherhood, loyalty. My foundation will focus on military families, helping them transition to civilian life. And mine, Sterling added, will partner with local schools. Kids need safe spaces to play, to learn, to grow. We're starting with that purple playground, but thinking bigger. I studied their faces, seeing Charles in each of them. You've really changed, because you showed us how, Riker said, by choosing love over vengeance when you had every right to destroy us. The foundations are just the beginning, Harvey added. We're selling our luxury cars, downsizing our homes. The money will do more good in the community. Sterling pulled out his phone. Remember that viral video of us apologizing? It hit 1 million views today. But look at the comments. I scrolled through. Inspired me to volunteer. Started helping at my local shelter. Changed how I judge people. Your story reached people, Patricia smiled. Changed perspectives about age gap relationships, about redemption, about what really matters. Charles knew, I said softly. He knew this would happen. Not exactly, a familiar voice called from the doorway. Maria from the shelter entered, followed by Sarah, the veteran Harvey helped, and the family moving into Sterling's latest house. We all had a hand in this transformation. The real inheritance, Riker stood, hugging Sarah, was the chance to become better people. To understand what Dad and Layla had, Harvey added, shaking his veteran friend's hand. To build something meaningful. Sterling lifted the little girl who'd wanted the purple room. Patricia handed me one final document, the official transfer of trust powers. But instead of signing immediately, I looked at the brothers. Charles believed in second chances, I said. Prove him right. We will, they answered in unison. As everyone filed out, I stayed behind in the study. The wedding photo caught the late afternoon light, and for a moment, I swore Charles was smiling differently. You planned it all, I whispered. The video evidence, the service requirement, the delayed trusts. You knew revenge wouldn't heal them. Only love could do that. My phone buzzed. A group text from the brothers. Meeting tomorrow to plan the joint foundation event? Sarah's bringing coffee, veterans are handling logistics, and the kids want to design posters. I smiled, remembering Charles's words about karma and consequences. He'd been right. The greatest consequence wasn't punishment, but transformation. His sons had lost their inheritance only to gain something far more valuable: purpose, compassion, and a chance to continue their father's true legacy. We did it, my love. I touched his photo one last time. We really did it. Outside, I could hear Riker laughing with Sarah's kids, Harvey discussing veteran outreach plans, and Sterling explaining playground safety features to excited parents. The whispers that had once haunted my wedding day had transformed into something beautiful. The sound of lives being changed, one act of kindness at a time. And that, I realized, was the greatest love story of all.
My name is Nadine, and I'm a 35-year-old social worker and single mother. Since my first marriage fell apart a few years ago, I've been living with my daughter Zoe, walking life's path together. Zoe is a bright, energetic 5-year-old girl who means everything to me. On weekdays, I work as a social worker at a children's home, and on weekends, I spend time with Zoe, either going to the park or having relaxing days at home. Since having Zoe, there have been challenging times, but her smile has been my saving grace every single day. Being a single mother and balancing work with childcare hasn't been easy, but I have Zoe. I was determined to live life to the fullest, both as a mother and as a social worker. Mommy, what are we going to do today? Zoe asks on weekend mornings, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Well, let's see. The weather looks nice. Should we go to the park and play on the swings? Or would you rather go to the beach and build a sandcastle? Sandcastle. I want to be a princess in the castle. Then it's settled. Today, we'll build a sandcastle for Princess Zoe. Seeing Zoe's innocent smile makes all my fatigue vanish. Even though we're a single-parent family, I want Zoe to have a happy childhood. That's what drives me every day. One day, while I was participating in my usual volunteer work, I caught the eye of a man I'd never met before. His name was Matthew, another volunteer with a lovely smile and gentlemanly demeanor. During the lunch break, he approached me. "Hello, I'm Matthew. You're Nadine, right? Thank you for always coming to volunteer. It's nice to meet you too." I should be the one thanking everyone for always being so welcoming. When I smiled, Matthew returned it with a gentle expression. "Nadine, would you like to have lunch with me sometime? I'd love to hear more about your work and your thoughts on volunteering." "Yes, I'd love to. I'd like to get to know you better too." That lunch date marked the beginning of my relationship with Matthew. Matthew was kind, passionate, and intellectually charming. We had many things in common, and time flew by when we were together. Matthew had a 17-year-old daughter named Nikki. Like me, he was a single parent. I admired how deeply he loved his daughter, and it made him even more attractive to me. After dating for a month, I told Matthew about Zoe. While I hadn't been hiding the fact that I was a single mother, it still took courage to tell a romantic partner about my daughter. Having a 5-year-old daughter. "Nadine, you're such an amazing mother. I'd love to meet your daughter." Matthew's words made me breathe a sigh of relief. His understanding made me fall for him even more. Eventually, the four of us, me and Zoe, Matthew, and Nikki, started spending more time together. Matthew and Nikki were both kind to Zoe, and she seemed to genuinely enjoy spending time with them. "Zoe, do you like Matthew and Nikki?" I asked her one day. "Yes, I love them. Matthew is fun, and Nikki is so nice to me." Hearing Zoe's words, my decision was made. Later, Matthew proposed, and we got married. The ceremony was intimate, with close friends and family. Zoe was the flower girl, and Nikki served as my attendant. "Nadine, I'm so happy to have you as my wife. Zoe and Nikki are both precious family to me. Let's build a happy home together, the four of us." When Matthew took my hand and said this, I was overcome with emotion and tears welled up. "Me too, Matthew. I'm so happy to become family with you. I want us to spend happy days together, for Zoe and Nikki's sake." We exchanged our vows with a kiss and became husband and wife. Our married life started smoothly. Matthew was a kind husband and father, treating both Zoe and Nikki equally. We'd go shopping together as a family, visit amusement parks. I couldn't help but feel blessed by the warmth of our family life. However, this peace didn't last long. A few months into our marriage, I began noticing something strange about Zoe's behavior. "Zoe, what's wrong? You don't seem like yourself." One evening during dinner, seeing Zoe unusually quiet, I spoke up. "Nothing, Mommy," Zoe answered in a small voice, keeping her eyes down. This response was so unlike my usually bright and energetic daughter, I couldn't hide my concern. Zoe's changes continued. She became extremely quiet, would jump at sudden noises, and cry over small things. Unable to ignore these changes in my daughter, I consulted her kindergarten teacher. Lately, Zoe has been spending a lot of time alone. She's stopped playing with her friends. Something might have happened. The teacher's words made my anxiety grow. What could have happened to Zoe? Then one day, while hugging Zoe, I noticed something disturbing. There were blue-black bruises on my daughter's thin arms. "Zoe, what happened here? Does it hurt?" When I asked, Zoe tensed up fearfully. I bumped into something while playing. "It's okay, it doesn't hurt." Though Zoe made this excuse, something about her voice seemed off. I began to suspect that Zoe might be being bullied at kindergarten. But something felt wrong. Could the cause be at home rather than at school? When I thought about this, a scene flashed through my mind. Recently, I had noticed Zoe showing signs of fear around Matthew. Could Matthew be doing something to Zoe? No, that couldn't be possible. I couldn't believe it. Yet, my doubts grew day by day. As a social worker who had witnessed numerous child abuse cases, I knew that perpetrators could be those closest to the child. I needed to know the truth. To protect my daughter, I needed to know the facts. With this in mind, I decided to give Zoe a smartwatch that could record conversations and surrounding sounds. Later, after obtaining the smartwatch, I gave it to Zoe. "Zoe, this is a present from Mommy. If you wear this, Mommy can protect you." "Really? Thank you, Mommy. I'll wear it every day." Zoe happily put on the smartwatch. But my heart remained heavy. Though it was to protect my daughter, I felt guilty about suspecting my family like this. Still, thinking of Zoe, I had no other choice. For several days, I checked the smartwatch recordings every night after returning from work. During this time, I hadn't recorded any conversations or sounds suggesting abuse from Matthew. One night, exhausted, I found myself muttering, "What am I doing?" Suspecting my husband, my family. Just as I was questioning myself, I heard Zoe's crying voice from the smartwatch. "Stop, please. It hurts." Zoe's anguished cry left me stunned. There was no doubt, Zoe was being abused by someone. "Shut up. If you scream, I'll make it hurt even more." The low voice yelling at Zoe, it was Matthew's voice. My nightmare had become reality. My body began to shake, and I felt nauseous. How could my trusted husband raise his hand against my daughter? But I had no time to be shocked. I needed to protect Zoe immediately. I transferred the recording to my phone and took immediate action. First, I took Zoe and fled to my parents' house. When I told them everything, they both turned pale. "Nadine, you need to report this to the police right away. With the evidence you have, he'll have to admit to the abuse." My father said this while placing his hand on my shoulder. My mother hugged Zoe while crying. "I'm so glad you came to us. Zoe, Grandma will protect you." Zoe nodded slightly in my mother's arms. The familiar smell of my childhood home brought back memories. I listened to the smartwatch recording again. Zoe's painful crying, Matthew's cruel words. "Matthew, I will never forgive you." I gritted my teeth and vowed in my heart. I could never forgive my husband for hurting my daughter. The next day, I went to the police with the evidence and filed a complaint. I also contacted Child Protective Services to have Zoe temporarily placed in their care. I told Zoe what would happen next. "Zoe, it must have been hard for you. But now, Matthew will never be able to hurt us again. Mommy will protect you properly." "Thank you, Mommy. I'm on your side too. Let's do our best together." Zoe squeezed my hand back. To think that my 5-year-old daughter could be so strong. I held Zoe tightly. By reporting Matthew for abuse, an irreparable rift formed between us. Still, I was prepared to do anything to protect my daughter. Matthew was called in for police questioning. Initially, he completely denied the abuse. "I never did anything to Zoe. Everything my wife is saying is made up." Matthew insisted on this, strongly condemning me. I too was struggling to accept the reality that our peaceful family had been destroyed. But the police weren't easily convinced by Matthew's claims. "Your wife has provided evidence. No matter how much you deny it, we have audio data backing this up." Even when told this, Matthew still wouldn't admit to the abuse. "There can't be any evidence. Show it if you have it," Matthew defiantly challenged. So the police played the smartwatch recording. "Stop, please. It hurts." Zoe's screaming voice echoed through the interrogation room. "Shut up. If you scream, I'll make it hurt even more." Following this was Matthew's angry threat. At that moment, Matthew's face reportedly turned pale. When was this recording made? On the very day Zoe was abused. The police officer's statement left Matthew speechless. Confronted with the evidence, Matthew's attitude changed completely, and he apologized to me. "I was wrong. It's true that I abused Zoe. Please forgive me. Zoe is only 5 years old. How could you abuse her?" I cried as I demanded answers from Matthew. I was stressed from work, irritated. I took it out on Zoe. Matthew mumbled, keeping his head down. "Stress. That's no excuse for using violence against a child. I trusted you as my husband, trusted you as Zoe's father. I'm truly sorry. But I won't do it again. Nadine, please don't leave me. This will ruin my career. Matthew begged for my forgiveness. His defiant attitude was gone, and he looked almost pitiful. I will protect Zoe. I don't care about your career. You must pay for the crime of hurting my daughter's heart and body. With those words, I decided to cut ties with Matthew. After completing the criminal complaint procedures, a restraining order was issued preventing Matthew from approaching us. He would never be able to appear before Zoe again. However, my husband's betrayal left a deep wound in my heart. Holding Zoe, I contemplated the days ahead. We had escaped the threat of Matthew. But Zoe's emotional wounds were far from shallow. Then one day, I received a call from my ex-husband, Pete. Nadine, I need to talk about Zoe. Can we meet? Pete's voice was hoarse and seemed somewhat desperate. After our divorce, Pete and I had barely stayed in contact. However, he suddenly reached out, offering to help our daughter. I know about Matthew. What he did is unforgivable. Nadine, I'll do anything for Zoe. You have custody, but please let me help protect our daughter. Pete's sincere gaze made tears well up in my eyes. I appreciate your feelings. But I'll handle Zoe's situation. I'm sorry for involving you. Nadine, abuse cases aren't easily overcome. Zoe needs support from all the adults around her. Pete's words hit the mark. Even away from Matthew, I wasn't sure if I could protect Zoe alone. I understand. For Zoe's sake, it seems I need to accept your help. With those words, I accepted Pete's offer. Later, when Pete met Zoe, he smiled at her kindly. Zoe, you've been through a lot. But Papa is on your side. I'll protect you together with Mommy. Zoe buried her face in Pete's chest and cried. Having not just her mother, but her father trying to protect her seemed to ease some of the anxiety in Zoe's heart. Thus, even my ex-husband Pete became our support. Pete increased his visits with Zoe and did everything he could to protect her from Matthew's abuse. For Zoe's sake, both Pete and I would fight together. Though we hadn't worked out as a married couple, we realized we shared the same love for our daughter. As the trial approached, I received a call from Matthew's stepdaughter, Nikki. Nadine, I need you to hear my story. About my father. Nikki's voice was trembling, and I felt uneasy. Nikki, what is it? Tell me anything you feel comfortable sharing. Nikki forced out her words. Father, he didn't just abuse Zoe. He abused me too. Ever since I was a child. This revelation left me stunned. Why did you keep quiet all this time? I'm sorry, Nadine. I was too scared to speak up. But after learning about Zoe, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Nikki's confession made my chest feel tight. Father would yell at me and slap me over tiny things. After Mom left, it got even worse. I was speechless at the horrific abuse Nikki described. Still, I couldn't defy him because he was all I had. I was weak. Surely, Nikki's heart bears deep wounds too. Nikki, this isn't your fault. Matthew is entirely to blame. You're a victim. Let's fight together. I won't let Matthew hurt you ever again. I'll fight with all my might to protect both you and Zoe. At my words, Nikki seemed to be crying. I want to protect Zoe too. I don't want father to hurt her anymore. I nodded deeply at Nikki's determination. Nikki, your testimony will be crucial in the trial. Even though it's painful, please share your experiences. I'll do everything I can. Because we're family. My heart was complex, feeling like it might burst. Matthew was the kind of person who could readily hurt even his own daughter. Both Nikki and Zoe are irreplaceable to me. To protect Zoe, Nikki, and myself, I had to face this battle with Matthew. On the day of the trial, my stomach was in knots from nervousness. Still, I told myself I had to be strong for Zoe and Nikki. Entering the courtroom, I saw Matthew sitting with his lawyer. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. As the trial began, the prosecution presented evidence of abuse one after another. Photos of Zoe's bruises, the audio recordings, and my testimony. Matthew's side argued that it was a momentary emotional action caused by stress. However, when Nikki took the witness stand, everything changed. I too was abused by my father. Since childhood, I was hit, yelled at, and hurt many times. Nikki's testimony threw the courtroom into commotion. Matthew turned pale and hung his head. With a trembling voice, Nikki continued to describe the horrific abuse. Father deeply wounded my heart and body. I cannot forgive him. I don't want Zoe to experience the same pain. Please, punish my father. The prosecution highlighted Matthew's pattern of daily abuse. His sentence was 5 years in prison. Led away by his lawyer, Matthew left the courtroom. He was no longer my husband, no longer Zoe's father, just a perpetrator. Nadine, thank you. Because of you and Zoe, I was able to stand up to my father. Nikki said this as she hugged me. Thank you too. I'm grateful for your courage. As we left the courtroom, Zoe ran to me. Mommy. Is it over? Yes, it's okay now. Matthew can never hurt us again. I said this as I lifted Zoe. However, my heart wasn't at peace. Both Zoe and Nikki would continue to bear their trauma. The emotional wounds from abuse don't heal easily. I vowed to keep supporting Zoe and Nikki. The road ahead might not be smooth. Still, we would overcome it together, the three of us supporting each other. Well, this is the beginning of our new life. Zoe, Nikki, let's walk this path together. I said this while holding both their hands. Zoe nodded with a smile, and Nikki smiled back. After Matthew was imprisoned, our lives changed dramatically. I continued working while focusing on raising Zoe. Nikki attended college and helped look after Zoe in her spare time. However, both Zoe and Nikki struggled with the trauma of abuse. Zoe would wake up from nightmares in the middle of the night, crying and seeking my help. Nikki experienced intense emotional swings and would sometimes panic over small things. I desperately supported them both. Yet, I was constantly reminded of how deep the wounds of abuse run. "Mommy, I'm sorry. Matthew got angry because I was a bad girl." Zoe would blame herself like this. "No, Zoe. You're not to blame. You did nothing wrong." I told her this repeatedly. But it seemed that young Zoe's heart had been programmed to believe she deserved the abuse. Nikki also struggled to control her emotions. "I'm a worthless child. That's why father abused me. I don't deserve to be loved." Nikki would cry, falling into despair. "Nikki, you're not worthless. You're precious family to me." I would embrace Nikki, continuously offering words of comfort. This was how I spent my days, fighting to help heal Zoe and Nikki's emotional wounds. Fortunately, Pete continued to support us wholeheartedly. "Nadine, you're not alone. I'll do my best for Zoe too. And I want to support Nikki as family as well." Pete tried to fulfill his responsibilities as a father. I was deeply grateful for Pete's help. Even though he was my ex-husband, I knew his love for Zoe was genuine. Zoe and Nikki gradually began facing their emotional wounds through counseling. I would hold and comfort Zoe when she was frightened by nightmares. With Nikki, I had many long conversations as she rode her emotional waves. Pete would take Zoe and Nikki to the park or on outings, spending time with them as a father figure. "Daddy, come play with us again." Zoe would show her innocent smile as she clung to Pete. "Thank you, Pete. I'm so glad to have you here." When I expressed my gratitude to Pete, he would smile back shyly. We began building a new kind of family. The wounds from Matthew's abuse might never completely disappear. But we promised each other to hold hands and keep moving forward. 5 years have passed, and Zoe is now 10. She's grown into a bright, energetic girl, surrounded by friends at school. Nikki is 22 and has graduated from college. She now works in social welfare and is involved in child abuse prevention activities. I remarried Pete. Wrapped in his love, both Nikki and Zoe's smiles seem to shine brighter than before. Of course, the emotional wounds from Matthew's abuse haven't completely healed, but Pete and I have sworn to protect and support them no matter what. Zoe, you're mommy's pride and joy. Nikki, your painful experiences weren't in vain. You're using them to help other children in need, aren't you? At our words, both Zoe and Nikki nodded shyly. One afternoon, looking out the window, I saw Zoe and Nikki playing in the garden. "Mommy, come here. I picked some flowers. Come play with us, Nadine. Pete has errands to run, so it's girls' day today." Zoe and Nikki were waving, calling me over. I exchanged glances with Pete, sharing our happiness. "Yes, let's play to our heart's content." I said this as I ran to join Zoe and Nikki. Beyond the hardships we've overcome, our family's new life is beginning. Surely, it will be a life filled with happiness that heals the wounds Zoe and Nikki received. After all, our story has only just begun. My name is Fiona, and I'm a 34-year-old single mother working as an elementary school teacher. I'm currently separated from my husband Walter, and while I struggle to balance work and childcare, I'm devoted to raising my daughter Hannah. Hannah is my 5-year-old daughter. She used to be cheerful and innocent, but recently she's been keeping to herself in her room. Especially at night, she tearfully begs, "Mommy, please don't come into my room." Walter is 36 and works for a large corporation. He's always busy with work and is rarely home. While he maintains a good public image, he's cold at home, and we've grown distant from each other. Walter and I met in college. We quickly became close through our shared love of music. I was captivated by the sound of his guitar, and nothing made me happier than spending time with him. We married right after graduation and began our new life together. Back then, we were truly happy, and I believe we had a perfect family until Hannah was born. The joy I felt when Hannah was born is beyond words. I took on all the household responsibilities and devoted myself to caring for her. Walter had landed a job at a large corporation, and at first, he managed to balance work and family life. However, gradually his workload increased, and he began coming home late more often. While I struggled with the pressure of managing the household alone, I still enjoyed my daily life with Hannah. But amid our peaceful days, a sudden storm arrived. I discovered Walter's affair. The pain I felt then still haunts me today. I tried to rebuild our relationship, but Walter remained cold and indifferent to our family. Our relationship gradually deteriorated, and I decided to separate from him. I found a new house and moved there with Hannah to start a new life. After starting our new life, my days with Hannah were quiet yet busy. My morning routine begins with preparing Hannah's breakfast. The smell of pancakes, her favorite, filling the kitchen always brings a smile to my face. When I gently call out, "Hannah, breakfast's ready," she comes to the kitchen with a sleepy face. "Good morning, Mommy," Hannah says with a smile as she sits at the table. I place the pancakes in front of her and encourage her, "Let's have a good day at kindergarten today." Hannah takes a bite of her pancake and responds cheerfully, "Yes, Mommy. I'll do my best." After dropping Hannah off at kindergarten, I rush to work. Though my job as an elementary school teacher keeps me busy, I'm passionate about teaching my students. Still, Hannah is always in the back of my mind. After school, I pick up Hannah, and we enjoy making dinner together. Hannah helps by cutting vegetables with her small hands and setting the table. However, Hannah has been different lately. After dinner, she tends to shut herself in her room, saying, "Mommy, please don't come in." This change worried me. Hannah had started keeping to herself in her room only in the past few weeks. She used to love spending time with me in the living room, but now she returns to her room immediately after dinner. Even when I invite her, saying, "Hannah, would you like to watch TV with Mommy?" she just replies, "No, I'm going to my room." That evening, I was spending a quiet moment in the living room. The house felt a bit lonely since Hannah had gone to her room. I made my favorite cup of tea and sat on the sofa. The news was playing on TV, but I couldn't focus on it. My mind was constantly preoccupied with Hannah. The next morning, while I was preparing Hannah's breakfast, she came into the kitchen in her pajamas. Though Hannah looked a bit tired, I smiled and said, "Good morning, Hannah. I made pancakes." "Good morning, Mommy," Hannah responded with a small smile and sat at the table. While she ate her pancakes, I observed her carefully. Her small hands lifting the fork to her mouth hadn't changed, but her eyes seemed to be gazing somewhere far away. "Hannah, you can always talk to Mommy about anything." "I'm here to listen," I said gently. Hannah looked up for a moment but quickly lowered her eyes again. She only answered, "Okay, Mommy," but her voice carried a hint of anxiety. After dropping Hannah off at kindergarten, I headed to work. Watching the children in my classroom enjoying themselves, I couldn't help but wish Hannah could smile like them too. After school, I went to pick up Hannah. When I spotted her getting off the bus, I held her hand firmly. When I asked, "How was your day?" Hannah only replied, "Normal." I could see fatigue in her eyes. During dinner time, I cooked with Hannah in the kitchen. I couldn't help but smile watching her seriously washing carrots. "Hannah, I'm so happy we can cook together today," I said, and Hannah showed a slight smile. She responded, "Me too," but then fell silent. While concerned about Hannah's changes, I tried my best to help her feel secure. After finishing dinner, Hannah returned to her room again. "Mommy, can we skip story time tonight?" she asked, and I could see confusion on her face. Respecting her wishes, I gently replied, "Of course, Hannah. Get some good rest." Late that night, after Hannah had fallen asleep, I stood outside her room. I could hear her peaceful breathing through the door. When I quietly opened the door and went in, Hannah was curled up in her sleep. Seeing her like that, my heart ached, not understanding what was making her so frightened. The next day passed similarly. Hannah's behavior hadn't changed, and I felt increasingly worried. I thought about consulting her kindergarten teacher but feared being seen as just an overanxious mother without any concrete evidence. That evening, when I picked up Hannah, I noticed she wasn't playing much with the other children. Her face lacked its usual brightness as she got off the bus. When I reached out my hand, Hannah held it tightly. "I love you, Mommy," Hannah said. "I love you too, Hannah. Remember, you can always talk to me about anything," I said gently. Hannah nodded slightly and replied, "Thank you, Mommy," but her eyes still showed signs of worry. That night, I again found myself standing outside Hannah's room. Unable to muster the courage to open the door, I just stood there listening to her breathing, silently praying. I strongly felt that I needed to find out what was making Hannah so scared. The next morning, while preparing breakfast, I was deep in thought about Hannah. It was clear she was hiding something, but I didn't know how to get her to open up. I felt I needed to be closer to her to protect her happiness and safety. After dropping Hannah at kindergarten, I continued thinking about her on my way to work. I found myself searching for answers about what I could do for her and how I could make her feel secure. After school, when I picked up Hannah, she seemed to have regained a bit of her spirit. When I asked, how was your day?" Hannah answered, "It was a little fun." While those words gave me some relief, I still couldn't completely shake off my worry. While making dinner together, Hannah gradually started talking more. "Mommy, I drew pictures at kindergarten today," Hannah said, and I eagerly asked, "Oh really? What did you draw?" Hannah replied, "A big tree, and me playing with my friends." Her smile at that moment felt like something I hadn't seen in ages. However, one night, as Hannah was in her room, I stopped outside her door and heard her quietly sobbing. Worried sick, I knocked on the door. "Hannah, are you okay?" "Mommy's here if you want to talk," I said gently, but Hannah just cried out, "Mommy, please, don't come in." There was desperation in her voice, and I couldn't bring myself to open the door. The next day, I decided to investigate Hannah's room while she was at kindergarten. After she left for school, I quietly entered her room. Everything was neat and tidy, with her favorite stuffed animals and picture books properly arranged. Yet there was an unsettling stillness in the air. I opened Hannah's closet. There I found her treasured Cinderella picture book. I knew Hannah particularly cherished this book, and wondering if there might be a special reason, I picked it up. As I turned the pages, I found a message written in Hannah's childish handwriting, "Run away from Daddy." I was shocked by these words emphasized in red. I couldn't understand what was happening or what Hannah knew. Afterward, I read Hannah's diary to understand what she knew and how it was affecting her. The diary contained Hannah's anxieties and fears. There were many entries about her father, Walter. It seemed Hannah was dealing with some serious issues regarding Walter. The contents made me increasingly worried. Tears fell as I read the line, "I'm scared of Daddy." My heart ached, not knowing what Walter had done to Hannah or why she was so frightened. Since our relationship had grown cold, I hadn't thought deeply about his behavior, but from Hannah's writings, it was clear he was hiding something. That night, I decided to call Walter. I had to confront him directly. When the call connected, I heard Walter's cold voice. "What is it, Fiona?" "At this hour," he said, and though I lost my words for a moment, I quickly began talking about Hannah. "Hannah seems scared and is hiding something." "Tell me why she's frightened," I demanded. However, Walter's response was cold, "I don't know anything." "Aren't you just being overprotective?" His attitude convinced me he was hiding something. "Walter, stop lying. You know why Hannah is so scared, don't you?" I pressed him, but he coldly declared, "This conversation is over. Just take care of Hannah properly," and hung up. At that moment, something broke inside me. It was clear Walter was hiding something, and I felt strongly that I needed to uncover it. The next morning, I prepared a special breakfast to help Hannah feel more secure. I made her favorite blueberry pancakes and orange juice, waiting for her to come to the table. "Good morning, Hannah. I made you a special breakfast today," I called out, and Hannah gave me a small smile. "Thank you, Mommy," Hannah whispered, and I squeezed her hand. "Hannah, remember that Mommy is always on your side. You can tell me anything, anytime," I said gently. Hannah was quiet for a moment before nodding and saying, "Okay, Mommy." Her response gave me a little comfort, but anxiety still lingered in my heart. After dropping Hannah at kindergarten, I headed to work. Even while teaching my students, I couldn't get Hannah off my mind. As soon as classes ended, I rushed to pick her up. At home, we made dinner together. While cooking, I asked, "Hannah, what did you do today?" Hannah answered, "I played with my friends," but there was a heaviness in her voice. After dinner, Hannah returned to her room again. I followed her and suggested, "Hannah, would you like to talk for a bit?" Hannah hesitated for a moment but eventually sat on her bed and looked at me. "Mommy, I'm scared of Daddy," Hannah said. Those words made my heart clench. "Why, Hannah? What happened?" I asked gently, but Hannah just shook her head. "Hannah, no matter what, Mommy will protect you. You can feel safe telling me anything," I said, and Hannah nodded slightly, saying, "Thank you, Mommy." Those words gave me a little relief, but I could still sense the great fear within her. That night, I stayed by Hannah's side until she fell asleep. After she was in deep sleep, I picked up her diary again. I read it thoroughly, trying to understand the fear and anxiety in her heart. The diary contained events Hannah had experienced with Walter. "Daddy was angry again." Reading this line brought tears to my eyes. While there weren't specific details about what Walter had done, it was clear that the fear was deeply etched in Hannah's heart. The next afternoon, when I picked up Hannah from school, I held her hand tightly. "Hannah, shall we go get ice cream together?" I suggested, and Hannah showed a small smile. "Yes, Mommy," she answered, and her voice gave me a bit of comfort. At the ice cream shop, Hannah chose chocolate ice cream, and we sat together on a bench to eat. The next day, after dropping Hannah at kindergarten, I decided to take her diary to the police. I couldn't get Hannah's messages out of my mind, and I felt this wasn't something to ignore. At the police station, I explained the situation at the front desk. The officer listened to my story, and when I showed him the diary and picture book, his expression became serious. "This could be very serious. Please tell me more details," the officer said. I told him everything about Hannah's recent behavior, Walter's cold attitude, and the contents of the diary. The officer took notes while listening and pointed out, "There might be listening devices planted in your house." Those words sent chills down my spine. Following the officer's instructions, we investigated the house. Hours later, the officer reported to me. "We found multiple listening devices in the house. Here they are," he showed me small devices. At that moment, everything connected in my mind. Walter had been monitoring our home conversations, planning to eliminate me for his new life with his mistress. When I realized this terrifying plan, I couldn't stop trembling. However, I knew I had to reveal this truth to protect Hannah. The police decided to monitor Walter's activities, and I needed to take Hannah to a safe place temporarily. Following police instructions, I stayed at a friend's house. I only told Hannah, "Let's go on a little trip together." Hannah didn't suspect anything and asked, Okay, Mommy. Where are we going? It's a secret place. Somewhere you can feel safe, I smiled, and Hannah nodded slightly. That night, while staying at my friend's house with Hannah, I waited for contact from the police. The listening devices found by the police became key evidence in uncovering Walter's plan. While staying at my friend's house with Hannah, my heart was full of anxiety. Although I had found a safe place for Hannah to stay, I knew we needed to expose Walter's conspiracy to completely ensure her safety. The next day, I received a call from the police. Your husband is showing suspicious behavior. We're preparing to investigate him, they said, making me even more tense. The police tailed Walter and monitored his actions. When they confirmed he was frequently returning to the house, I returned home with police support. The house was silent, filled with tension. After a while, Walter came home. His face showed no emotion, and I confronted him with a firm attitude. Walter, we need to talk, I said calmly. Walter seemed surprised for a moment but quickly showed a cold smile. What about, Fiona? He said. About the listening devices you planted in the house. We found all of them, I said firmly. Walter's face froze for a moment, but he quickly tried to appear calm. Listening devices. I don't know what you're talking about, he answered. Stop lying, Walter. The police know everything. They know about your plan too, I declared, and Walter showed a moment of agitation. However, he quickly became angry, shouting, What are you talking about? You don't have any evidence. At that moment, the police entered the room. Walter Smith, you're under arrest for wiretapping and attempted murder, the officer announced. Walter's face showed shock, and though he tried to resist, he was subdued by the officers. I watched Walter while thinking of Hannah, who was safely staying at my friend's house. I struggled with how to tell her the truth but felt I needed to be honest with her for her sake. After watching Walter being taken away by the police, I returned to Hannah. When Hannah saw my face, she asked worriedly, Mommy, are you okay? Hannah, Mommy's fine. We can feel safe now, I answered with a smile, and Hannah squeezed my hand. Thank you, Mommy, Hannah said, and those words brought tears to my eyes. I realized I had overcome everything for Hannah's sake. That night, while holding Hannah, I reflected on the days I had spent doing everything I could to bring back her smile. Hannah fell asleep peacefully in my arms, and as I watched her sleeping face, I felt hope for our new life ahead. The day after Walter's arrest, the police also caught his mistress as an accomplice. The police investigation revealed their misdeeds one after another. It became clear that they had been planning together to eliminate me by making it look like an accident. As the legal proceedings progressed, we consulted with lawyers and decided to claim compensation from Walter. I felt we needed a solid financial foundation to protect Hannah's future. Afterward, I began preparing to start a new life with Hannah. Finding a new house and creating an environment where Hannah could feel secure was my top priority. A few weeks later, we found a lovely house in a quiet residential area. Hannah liked the house, and we immediately began preparing to move. On moving day, though Hannah seemed a bit anxious. When I said, "Fun days are waiting for us in our new home," she nodded slightly. When we arrived at the new house, Hannah looked around and said, "This is nice." Those words filled me with relief. Life in our new house gradually healed us. Hannah regained her brightness day by day and quickly adapted to her new kindergarten. She comes home happy every day and cheerfully tells me about what happened at kindergarten. Every time I see Hannah growing, I'm grateful that she's growing up in a safe and happy environment. One day, when Hannah came home from kindergarten, she showed me a handmade card. "Mommy, look. I made this," Hannah said, and I took the card. It had colorful drawings and a message saying, "I love you, Mommy." Those words brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you, Hannah. This is such a lovely card," I said, and Hannah replied, "Thank you, Mommy. I'm happy because I have you." At those words, I hugged her tightly and gently said, "You're my pride and joy." Our new life gradually but surely stabilized. I spent more time with Hannah, and we deepened our bond. Our relationship grew stronger as we enjoyed going to the park together on weekends and cooking together. As Walter's trial progressed, I deeply considered the impact he had on Hannah's life. Though his actions completely changed our lives, we grew stronger through that experience. Hannah maintained that strength, and I renewed my determination to do everything I could to support her. After Walter and his mistress received their legal judgment, we could finally live in peace. Walter received a long sentence, and his mistress was also sent to prison. With their conspiracy revealed and justice served, peace returned to Hannah's and my hearts. Our new life was filled with new joys and discoveries every day. The time I spent with Hannah was most precious to me, and her smile healed my heart. We went to the park together, enjoyed cooking, and took trips on weekends. Meanwhile, Walter and his mistress met a miserable end. In prison, they came to realize the weight of their crimes. Along with his mistress, Walter paid the price for betraying our family while receiving legal punishment. After his cold attitude and conspiracy came to light, he became isolated from society and spent his days regretting his actions. The new life Hannah and I found was true happiness waiting for us after overcoming difficulties. Hannah made many friends at her new kindergarten and enjoyed every day. Every time I saw her bright smile, I felt satisfied that I had protected her. One night, before going to bed, Hannah said to me, "Mommy, I had so much fun today." "Thank you." Those words made me truly happy. When I replied, "Hannah, when you're happy, Mommy's happy too," Hannah said, "I love you, Mommy," expressing her gratitude. As I watched Hannah's sleeping face, I felt blessed to be able to watch over her growth. I vowed in my heart that we would continue moving forward together toward a new future. I realized my mission was to provide an environment where Hannah could grow up feeling secure and watch over her as she pursued her dreams. We will continue walking toward our new future. While cherishing the true happiness we found after overcoming difficulties, we're grateful to be able to spend peaceful and tranquil days together. Hannah's smile gives me strength, and my love will continue to support her as our days go on. My brother Neil collapsed right in front of us. His face was pale, and he was unconscious. It happened so suddenly that I didn't know what had happened to him. With trembling fingers, I managed to operate my phone and call an ambulance. While waiting for Neil to regain consciousness, my 6-year-old niece Dakota called out to me. "Wanda." Dakota looked straight at me and held out an envelope. "Here. Dad told me to give this to you if he ever collapsed." Although Dakota and I had been living together for a year, this was the first time she had called my name or looked me in the eye while speaking to me. Still shaken, I took the envelope and looked inside. I was speechless. Inside was the answer to why Dakota had never opened her heart to me. "My name is Wanda. After graduating from college, I've been working an office job for 3 years. During my college years, I lost both my parents in an unfortunate accident. Since then, my brother Neil and I have been living together in the house our parents left us, supporting each other. Neil, 7 years my senior, was always sincere, kind, and caring towards his sister, always there to support me. He would always make me laugh so I wouldn't feel lonely, and we managed to overcome the pain of losing our parents and lived happily together. 8 years ago, Neil got married and moved out. I saw him off with both joy and a touch of loneliness, and began living alone. However, last year, Neil returned to our family home with his daughter. He had gotten divorced. Neil refused to talk about the divorce. More than that, he was completely different from his former self. He barely spoke and never smiled. He sighed frequently and always looked tired. Neil works at a bank and comes home late every night. He travels frequently for work, and on his precious days off, he would just stay locked in his room sleeping. I rarely saw him talking with his own daughter. I never saw them laughing together. He used to laugh heartily with me, but now. What happened to Neil? I wanted to ask but couldn't. I spent my days feeling frustrated. In Neil's place, I took care of Dakota every day. After work, I would do the housework, prepare dinners that Dakota might like, buy her clothes, and spend time with her. Having lost my parents and with few relatives, I was very happy to have my family grow. I wanted to become close with Dakota quickly. Even though I was busy, taking care of Dakota wasn't a burden. However, even after living together for a year, she wouldn't open up to me. She wouldn't even make eye contact or speak to me. I felt lonely, but I couldn't ask Dakota anything. What had happened to Neil and Dakota? I became unsure of how to interact with Dakota, and eventually started feeling uneasy. One day, Neil's ex-wife came to our house to see Dakota. Neil was away for work. His ex-wife was very friendly and cheerful. During Neil's marriage, she and I got along well. We would go out for lunch together and share secrets that we kept from Neil. I was happy to have gained what felt like a real older sister. That's why I felt especially sad about their divorce. When she visited, she was still as cheerful as ever and called out my name. "Wanda, it's been a while. I'm feeling lonely being apart from my daughter. Could I see her for a bit?" Being separated from family, especially a beloved daughter, must be lonely. I understood that pain all too well. Without any hesitation, I let her see Dakota. "We'll go out for tea," she said, and left with Dakota. For some reason, Dakota kept her head down as she followed behind her ex-wife. Wasn't she happy to see her mother after so long? Something felt off about their retreating figures, but I saw them off anyway. That night, Neil came home earlier than usual. He still looked tired as always. I reported to him about his ex-wife's visit and how she had gone out with Dakota. I thought he would brush it off with a vague response as usual, but Neil raised his face and looked at me with sharp eyes. Looked might not be the right word, glared would be more accurate. Seeing this side of Neil for the first time, I felt a chill run down my spine. Why did you do something like that without asking? Neil's face was turning red rapidly. What? But, isn't it natural for a mother to want to see her daughter? We know better than anyone how lonely it is to be separated from parents. I answered, trembling. I couldn't stop the words from flowing out. Besides, what's with you? You leave all of Dakota's care to me, and usually just nod along when I try to consult you about anything, but now you get angry over this. Don't raise your voice just for this when you never tell me anything important. All my pent-up frustrations exploded, not being told the reason for the divorce, taking care of Dakota who wouldn't warm up to me in Neil's place, spending this past year being considerate of both Neil and Dakota. I asked you to take care of my daughter because you offered to help. But couldn't you at least consult me about something like this? Neil's tone grew even stronger as he shot back. Consult? You're always looking down, never willing to talk about anything. The moment I counterattacked, there was a dull thud as Neil, who had been sitting in his chair, collapsed. At first, I couldn't process what had happened, but then I realized Neil had fallen. Neil. He didn't respond to my calls. His face had turned blue. I didn't know what was happening, and my body was shaking so much I could barely move. Dad. Hearing the commotion, Dakota came down from the second floor. I needed to pull myself together. I had to be strong in front of Dakota. I came back to my senses. An ambulance. With trembling fingers, I somehow managed to dial the numbers on my phone. While waiting for the ambulance to arrive, I checked Neil's pulse and breathing, made sure he was stable, and then said to Dakota, "I'm sorry, that must have scared you. But it's going to be okay. We'll go to the hospital together, so get ready." Dakota nodded and went up to her second-floor room. Then the ambulance arrived, and we headed to the hospital. About 2 hours after being brought to the emergency center, Neil was still sleeping in the hospital room. His color had returned, and his breathing was stable. The doctor told us his life wasn't in danger, which relieved us. Dakota silently watched Neil sleeping in the hospital room. How should we spend the time until Neil wakes up? Should I try to talk to her? That's right, her father had collapsed. Dakota must be shocked. I thought I should try to ease the tension in the air. It didn't matter if Dakota didn't listen. It didn't matter if she ignored me. Your dad's been really busy, hasn't he? Looks like he got a bit too tired. But don't worry, the doctor said your father will wake up soon. Wanda. Dakota interrupted my words. I was surprised and looked at her face. Not only was it the first time she had called my name, but it was also the first time she had properly responded to me. Then Dakota looked straight at me. For the first time, I saw Dakota's face head on. What was happening? My heart started racing. Dad told me to give this to you if he collapsed. Looking at Dakota's hands, I saw she was holding out an envelope to me. I couldn't hide my surprise and couldn't find words. This envelope was what Dakota had gone upstairs to get before we left the house. I quietly took the envelope and nervously looked inside. There were several photographs, audio data, and a letter inside. I was shocked. The photographs showed Neil's ex-wife walking arm in arm with another man, looking happy as they entered a hotel. There were several other photos of the ex-wife spending time happily with the man. Some were so inappropriate I wanted to look away. There was audio data of conversations between the two of them. And a letter addressed to me. It read, "To Wanda. If anything happens to me, please take care of my daughter." I froze. Now I understood why Neil had been silent all this time. The mystery was solved. At that moment, tears welled up in my eyes. I'm sorry. You must have been hurting so much. I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. I hugged Dakota and cried. The depth of Dakota's emotional wounds far exceeded my imagination. Such a small child, only 6 years old, had been holding back so much. Dakota was crying too. Through her tears, she mustered the strength to tell me everything. The reason she hadn't warmed up to me was that Neil had told her not to say unnecessary things. That's why she didn't know how to interact with me and couldn't even make eye contact. Dakota had closed her heart to adult women because of her distrust and despair towards her mother, who would leave her alone every night. This child had been more considerate than I was. She had been suffering so much. Indescribable feelings welled up inside me. When Neil regained consciousness a while later, I heard everything. The divorce hadn't ended everything. Despite choosing another man over her family and committing adultery, the ex-wife was now saying she wanted her daughter back. Neil and his ex-wife had been discussing this almost daily, but she wouldn't give up. Considering the financial aspects, Dakota's feelings, and the cause of the divorce, Neil absolutely couldn't hand Dakota over. Neil had started feeling discomfort in his stomach day by day, sometimes experiencing severe pain that felt like his insides were being squeezed. Due to this poor health, he couldn't even get out of bed on his days off. While fighting his own health anxiety, he refused to go to the hospital, fearing his ex-wife would use his illness as an excuse to take away his daughter. And finally, Neil had collapsed. Yes, Neil had been carrying everything alone, trying not to worry or burden me or Dakota. Both his mind and body had reached their limit. I couldn't forgive his ex-wife. Something started boiling up inside me. She had abandoned her precious family to live with another man, pushing the once kind Neil into darkness. She appeared before me acting as if nothing had happened, met with her daughter, and most unforgivably, inflicted deep emotional wounds on young Dakota. I couldn't forgive her. Neil, you've done enough on your own. You can rest until you get better. I'll fight now. I absolutely cannot forgive her. I will fight her and win. I'll make sure she never appears before us again. My fighting spirit kept growing stronger. First, I hired a private investigator. I wanted to thoroughly investigate Neil's ex-wife. Then, I retained a lawyer. I was confident we wouldn't lose. The investigation revealed one shocking misdeed after another. After the divorce, she had been going to male review clubs every night. She had paid large sums of money to her favorite male performers and kept taking out loans. The loans had grown to an amount she couldn't possibly repay. Why would someone in such financial straits try to gain custody of her daughter? The benefit of having custody of her daughter was money. If she got custody, she could receive child support from Neil. She could also receive government benefits. There were significant financial advantages. That must have been her thinking. She wasn't considering her daughter's happiness at all. My irritation grew stronger. And there was one more thing. There were suspicions that she had embezzled money from the bank where Neil worked. Upon investigation, her method proved to be particularly malicious. She had met Neil at work, married him, and then quit her job. Therefore, she knew the employees well. She would approach male employees who had no dating history with women, get them drunk, and sleep with them. Then she would make these male employees transfer bank money to her account as hush money. Extorting large sums of money from people and spending it on another man. Abandoning her important family. And even after the divorce, she kept trying to get close to Neil in various ways to squeeze more money out of him. She didn't care what happened to her daughter as long as she got money. I absolutely wanted to protect Dakota. And I swore to put an end to that woman's misdeeds. Neil has collapsed and is in critical condition. We need to discuss future matters, so could you come here right away? Finally, having gathered solid evidence, I called Neil's ex-wife to the lawyer's office. The part about Neil being in critical condition was a lie. But I thought being a bit dramatic would be just right to get her to come. Also to see her reaction. If Neil didn't wake up and passed away, she would get custody of their daughter. And she would get all of Neil's inheritance. Nothing could be more convenient for her. What expression would she wear when she came? I wanted her to show even a little concern for Neil. I hoped to see at least some humanity in her. But that hope was quickly shattered. What about the inheritance? Those were the first words out of her mouth as she opened the office door. I used to think of this person as my sister-in-law and looked up to her. The face she had shown me was all a lie. In reality, she was this money-obsessed, with such an ugly face. She would use any means necessary for money. I hadn't noticed this terrifying side of her. Stay calm, I told myself. We've been waiting. But before that, there are many things we'd like to discuss. Please look at these first. I immediately spread across the table all the evidence we had, the adultery photos, audio data, records of her visits to the male review club and her orders there, security camera footage from the club, documents related to the embezzlement, testimonies from the threatened male employees, transfer data, and every other piece of evidence we had. The ex-wife turned pale at once. "What is this? What's going on? How dare you?" She was clearly flustered. Her words weren't coming out properly. "Now then, let's go through this one by one." The lawyer began speaking in a matter-of-fact tone. No matter how much the ex-wife denied it or how loudly she raged, with this much evidence confronting her, there was no escape. Then the ex-wife glared at me. "You traitor! After I treated you like a real sister all this time, you do something like this behind my back. You think you'll get away with this?" She approached me with a changed expression and grabbed both my shoulders. Then she pushed me with force. I hit the wall. I felt fear and felt the blood drain from my face. But I absolutely wouldn't lose. I grabbed her wrists with even more force and shook her off. "Who's the real traitor here? What's actually important to you? Do you have any idea how many people have suffered because of you? Shut up. Don't act so high and mighty with me. These things prove nothing. You made all this up, didn't you?" Saying this, she threw the evidence photos and documents from the table at me. "Stop. Don't add to your crimes." The lawyer, who had maintained a calm tone and never shown emotion until now, raised his voice. He calmly explained that the more she tried to make unsightly excuses here, the worse it would be for her. A moment of silence fell, and then the ex-wife suddenly broke down crying. I knew my daughter was important. But I couldn't stop." As she said this, her earlier intensity vanished as if it had been a lie, and now she seemed very small. She sat down on the floor as if her legs had given out, keeping her head down. I called the police. The ex-wife left the office with the responding officers. Outside the office, a crowd of onlookers had gathered, creating some commotion. Inside the office was quiet. I felt all my strength leave me at once and sank into the sofa. It was over now. This was for the best. Soon after the ex-wife was handed over to the police, an arrest warrant was issued for embezzlement. The male employee who had been threatened into helping with the embezzlement received a suspended sentence but stopped showing up at work. And for her repeated acts of adultery in the past, Neil decided to sue his ex-wife for damages. During the police investigation, more details came to light. The ex-wife had used the embezzled money to purchase an apartment unit to live with the man she had been supporting. Later, the court ordered her to repay the embezzled money. The ex-wife frantically contacted the man and tried to get cash repayment and sell the apartment, but he had already quit his job at the club and disappeared. Moreover, the apartment had already been put up for sale. Large repayments and damage compensation. No one could see any hope in the ex-wife's life after her release. Meanwhile, Neil's condition improved completely, and he was discharged. The cause of his collapse was a stomach ulcer due to stress, but it had become quite severe because he had endured it for so long. Neil's smile returned. He went back to being the kind Neil of old. And something wonderful happened. Dakota, who had been avoiding me, opened her heart to me and started calling me by name every day. And she began showing me her innocent smile. Peaceful days. I had never felt such ordinary things to be so precious. I can't be Dakota's mother. But as someone she relies on, I want to face her growth as a stand-in for her mother. Wanda, thank you, Dakota said suddenly. Huh? For what? Oh, nothing, she replied. Her smile was radiant. I want to protect this child's smile forever. That's what I thought. Why are you feeding Mom's bones? This happened when my husband was giving the dog treats, bones, to our pet. My niece suddenly pointed at the bone. My 5-year-old niece was always saying curious things. So I thought it was just another one of those times. But her face turning pale and starting to shake uncontrollably was not normal at all. No way. That couldn't possibly be true. As I began to investigate further, I was about to face some horrifying truths. My name is Paige. I got married to my husband, Felix, 3 years ago, and we were enjoying happy days together. If there was one worry, it was that we couldn't have children easily. But they say babies are a blessing, so there's no point in rushing. The slight loneliness I felt was filled by our dog, Max, whom we got in return. Besides, we had something to look forward to regularly as a couple. Sorry again this time. Please take care of my daughter. That was the care of our 5-year-old niece, Janice, brought by my brother's wife, Vega. Vega, who had finished her maternity leave a few years ago, only brought Janice over on weekends when she had to work. Our niece was a very cute girl and had grown attached to us, and both my husband and I doted on her as if she were our own child. Janice has a slightly mysterious power. It may sound strange to say this, but she was a child with exceptionally sharp intuition. She could predict snack menus and never lost at rock paper scissors against me. My husband seemed unfazed, but I jokingly called Janice's ability prophecy. Now, why do we end up taking care of Janice so often? Well, that's because of my brother, Malvin. She works for a well-known company and earns quite a bit. But my brother, who married her, took advantage of her earnings and started frequenting pachinko parlors without a job. So when Vega worked on weekends, my brother would be absent, leaving Janice alone. Taking care of Janice was not a problem. But if this lifestyle continues, it will be a considerable burden on her. I suggested consulting our parents several times, but she gently declined. I appreciate the sentiment. But it's our problem, so I don't want to worry others. Besides, except for being fond of pachinko, he helps with household chores properly. She said she wasn't considering divorce because they had children. However, during one of these discussions, I overheard my brother asking for money over the phone. Vega? I'm on a roll at pachinko, but I'm a bit short on cash. Can you bring some over right now? I'll pay you back double, promise. His carefree words leaked through the phone, and I felt annoyed. He clearly didn't understand what my sister-in-law was going through. Vega smiled tiredly, and at a distance, Janice, who had been playing with my husband, started rummaging through the drawer and pulled out a cold medicine without being told, bringing it to Vega. "Mom, take this medicine." "Thank you. But Mom is fine, so don't worry, okay? Mama is just a little tired." Janice is so kind. Even a child could be considerate, but when it came to my brother. At that time, I didn't think much of it. However, the one who came to drop off Janice the following weekend was my brother, Malvin. It was usually Vega who brought her, so I was a little surprised. How unusual. Sacrificing gambling for family duty. Don't say it in such a nasty way. Actually, I caught a cold and I want you to take care of Janice for a few days. I have to go to the hospital and take care of myself, so I don't seem to have time to take care of her. Listening to that, I remembered when Janice brought me cold medicine. I'm worried. Should I go make dinner? No, please don't worry about it. She says she'll be fine if she rests a bit. Let's take this opportunity to make sure you treat Vega well too, okay? Yes. I have to go back and take care of her right away, so I'll leave now. My brother, eager to leave, probably because his ears were hurting. You'll just lose at gambling anyway. Then, Janice, seeing that, murmured quietly. You said you were going to take care of Mom, right? You're not going today. Even though my daughter spoke to him, my brother left without even looking at Janice, hastily putting on his shoes and walking out. What's with that attitude? As I gently stroked the seemingly lonely Janice, I scolded him in my mind. I planned to reprimand him firmly when he came next, but he showed up again later that day. And for what? Because he didn't have money and couldn't buy ingredients for dinner, he asked me to lend him some. No way. You didn't go to gambling again, did you? Ha ha ha. Vega seemed much better at lunch, so I thought I'd take a light break. Anyway, can you lend me some money? She's waiting at home with an empty stomach. With that said, I couldn't exactly lecture him at length. Reluctantly, I handed him a $50 bill. Thanks. I'll pay you back double as thanks. You don't have to double it, just make sure you pay it back. Don't worry. I'll soon get a large sum of money. A large sum of money. Is he talking about gambling again? Before I could question him further, he had already dashed out of the entrance. For the next 3 days, I didn't hear from my brother, and I continued to take care of Janice. I thought it was fine since it seemed like just a cold, but I was starting to get worried. Just as I was thinking of going to take care of him on my own, my brother suddenly showed up without any notice. And he had shopping bags filled with a large amount of snacks in both hands. I was so busy with unfamiliar nursing that I couldn't even contact you. Sorry about that. She's still not better, so I can't let you see her yet, but Vega seems to be getting much better. Seeing my brother laughing carelessly, I felt relieved that Vega seemed to be okay. That's fine, but what about those snacks? These are a thank you for taking care of Janice this time. Since I'll probably ask you for more favors soon, this is part of that. The bag he handed over had a lineup of snacks that looked like typical casino prizes. he probably went there again. However, seeing Janice's eyes shining next to me, I decided not to question him, and I handed the heavy bag to my husband. My husband, who loves sweets, was delighted. Also, I prepared something special. My brother plunged his hand into the bag of snacks and pulled something out. Ta-da! Dog bone-shaped gum. I bought it as a thank you because Max has been keeping Janice company. Our dog noticed the sweets and happily ran around my husband's feet. Felix, this bone-shaped gum has a good reputation. Let's give it to Max right away. My husband said, thank you, and took out the gum from the bag. Max got very excited about the gum, which looked just like a real bone, and immediately started chewing on it. It really does have a good reputation. I didn't expect him to be this happy. While laughing at the excited Max, I suddenly looked at Janice. For some reason, she was pale and trembling uncontrollably. What's wrong? Why are you letting him eat that? Although her voice was barely audible, I could clearly hear her this time. Why are you letting him eat Mom's bones? Upon hearing that, everyone fell silent for a moment. It was a seemingly joking remark, but my niece's expression was deadly serious. My husband asked, "What's wrong, Janice? Did you remember a scary TV show or something?" as he picked up my niece and tried to comfort her, but her trembling didn't stop. Watching her like that, I suddenly remembered my niece's mysterious power. Is this also a prophecy? But it's too eerie for that. Hey, bro, Vega is really starting to recover from the cold, right? What are you talking about now? Of course she is. Otherwise, she wouldn't be going out. Despite my brother's denial, his voice sounded different from usual. Sensing that he was hiding something, I pressed him. I'm still worried, so I'll go take care of her directly. I can make her something nutritious. No. There's no need for that. If you catch a cold too by doing that, who will take care of Janice? My brother stubbornly insisted, wiping his cold sweat and sighing heavily. Despite how it looks, Janice is important to me. I want to do my best to keep her from catching a cold. He spoke passionately, but he hadn't taken any basic cold precautions like wearing a mask. Would someone with such conviction neglect such elementary things? However, before I could say the next word, my brother quickly ended the conversation. It's about time I made dinner for Vega, so I'm going home. As I watched him leave in a hurry, I shifted my gaze to Janice, who my husband was holding, and she was still trembling slightly. Hey, Janice, you mentioned Mom turning into bones earlier, right? What's that about? I'm not sure. But at that moment, it felt like Mom turned into bones. My niece said and burst into tears, shaking her head when asked anything else. I'll follow my brother. Take care of her, please. I said to my husband as I rushed out of the house, and it was just as my brother turned right. While keeping a certain distance to avoid being noticed, I followed behind him. But what could my brother be hiding? An affair? Or maybe a marital dispute? None of these seemed to connect to what Janice said about bones. As I pondered over this, my brother continued straight ahead instead of turning down the road he should have. There's no house over there. Where is he going? After about 5 minutes of walking, we arrived at a deserted park on the outskirts of town. It was a park where even the swings were rusted and unusable, and he was meeting a man there alone. Even from a distance, the man he was meeting was muscular. Although their conversation wasn't clear due to the distance, my brother seemed to be fawning over him. As I held my breath and listened in on their conversation, I caught a snippet of what they were saying. But the content was too shocking. No way. It can't be true. I almost screamed and covered my mouth with my hand. Then, I couldn't stand still and ran to my brother's house. When I arrived, I used the spare key that had been given to me before to enter. And the next moment, I felt a heavy, polluted atmosphere. And it was no wonder, as garbage was scattered around, an unpleasant odor filled the air, and it was clear that it was an unsanitary environment with no ventilation. It was a lie to take care of her after all. Where's Vega? I called out her name at the entrance, but there was no sound from inside the house, so I reluctantly took off my shoes and went inside. Then, after peeking into the living room and kitchen, I opened the door to the bedroom in the back and was left speechless. There, lying on the futon, with both hands and feet bound with rope and a gag in her mouth, was Vega. Vega! Are you okay? I hurried over to her and untied her restraints. Water, please. When I took a bottle from the refrigerator and handed it to my sister-in-law, she drank it all at once. How awful! Did my brother do this right? Even though he's my brother, I felt terrified. But for now, I need to call an ambulance for Vega. I rushed out, forgetting my smartphone at home. As I stood up to use the landline, the next moment, my heart almost stopped. To my surprise, my brother, who had returned at some point, met my eyes. Malvin. What on earth is going on? Explain yourself. I had no choice. If I didn't do this, my life would be in danger. Is it about debt? While searching for Vega, I searched the rooms. Then, I happened to see a large pile of collection letters thrown on the living room table. The reason we're broke is because of you. The person you were talking to in the park earlier, they're debt collectors, right? You were snooping around there. You need to make sure to check behind you as well. My brother laughed without a hint of remorse. It seems he was taken in by a local scammer, got involved in a shady investment scheme, and ended up with a large amount of debt from dubious financial transactions. However, in the end, it turned out to be a scam, and he was left with nothing. And, in trouble with repayment, my brother started thinking of nefarious things. The conversation I overheard a few hours ago during my surveillance at the park revealed that he and the debt collectors planned to make Vega disappear and collect insurance money. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think my brother could be such a terrifying person. It's tough for me too. The kids are noisy, and Vega keeps saying I should work. I was aiming for a big turnaround, but even the people I trusted betrayed me. That's just karma. Why couldn't you just work hard and support your family? Humph, That kind of boring life doesn't suit me. My life is for myself, so I can do whatever I want. I couldn't help but feel disgusted by his selfishness. I didn't want to believe that such a man was my brother. I'm going to report this to the police. You need to pay for your sins and reflect on your actions. How are you going to report it? Saying that, my brother flashed the knife he had hidden behind his back. You will be coming to take care of Vega today and stay over. I'll let Felix know. If it comes to this, I'll have to lock you up in this room too. Saying so, my brother approached the landline phone behind him and ripped out the cord. Bro, stop this nonsense. If I don't go home anytime soon, Felix will find it suspicious. It seemed he hadn't even considered that possibility. I was about to say something, but the next moment, he looked at me with a defiant smile. Hey, Paige, wanna team up with me? Huh? I was speechless at the unexpected words that came out of my brother's mouth. However, he paid no attention to my reaction. I've actually been thinking about the perfect crime. With a smug expression, he gleefully revealed something unexpected. But I had a bad feeling about it. Ever since I was a child, when my brother makes that kind of face, it's all about being a bastard. However, it is unwise to provoke him at this point. So how do you do this whole perfect crime thing? It's Max. My brother, after a lot of pretense, said something unexpected, as if he was about to tell me a very special secret. Huh? The perfect crime involving Max. You saw it earlier, right? That dog was happily chewing on bones. What my brother described as the perfect crime was truly outrageous. He planned to dismember Vega when she became a missing person as planned and dispose of her. And then, he thought of feeding those bones to our Max for disposal. I was so shocked that I couldn't close my mouth. I can't believe it. Were you really thinking of doing that? Oh, don't you think it's a brilliant idea? If it works out, I'll share the insurance money with you too. Paige, you want your own home, right? However, just as I was about to say the next words, my brother's face suddenly tensed up. At that moment, the intercom in our house rang. Hey, don't move and wait. If you do anything unnecessary, there will be consequences. With a glare at me and Vega, my brother headed for the front door. And the moment the key turned in the lock, the front door was forcefully kicked open. Police! Drop your weapons and surrender. What? Why? In the blink of an eye, I couldn't comprehend it either. Why did the police show up just in time to apprehend my brother? Did you make the call? I didn't. Wasn't it you? I shook my head. As we stood there dumbfounded, one of the police officers rushed over to us. Are you okay? An ambulance will be here soon. Why did you come to help us? No one made a call. We received a call from a little girl. She said, "Please help my mommy." She was about 5 years old. Oh. That must have been Janice. She warned us of the danger. Relieved, Vega and I watched as my brother, restrained by the police, struggled and thrashed about. Darn it, Janice. If it weren't for her meddling, my plan would have been perfect. Grimacing with regret, he pounded the floor with his fist. Huh. How is that perfect? Beside me, Vega couldn't help but shout out in disbelief. Listen, what's with the dismemberment plan? You can't show the doctor a dismembered body, you won't get a death certificate. And then you won't be able to claim the insurance money, right? And besides, why bother weakening and faking illness? Wouldn't it be simpler to just do it all at once? Feeding bones to a dog to make them disappear. Max is a small dog. How many years do you think it'll take for him to finish eating the bones of a grown adult? And Max is a rescue dog we got at the adoption event, almost 10 years ago. There's no way he can eat something so hard. With each merciless criticism from me and Vega, my brother had no room for rebuttal and tears welled up in his eyes. But our anger wasn't going to be quelled by this. You, loafing around every day without working, has your brain turned to mush? Yes, seriously, if you have time to think about some perfect crime or whatever, you should study some basic common sense. And then, finally, he burst into tears and started crying out loud. Darn it, everyone's making fun of me. Well, it's your own fault, isn't it? Yes, our own brother, what a disgrace. At least reflect on your actions properly behind bars. Well, we're all cutting ties with you, so we don't care what happens to you anymore. What? Are you all abandoning me? Don't say such cold-hearted things. Well, that's a bit too generous of you. You've been slacking off all this time, so now you'll have to pay the price alone. Now, officer, please take this man away. After that, my brother continued to wail and complain, but he was handcuffed and taken away in a police car. Vega soon headed to the hospital in the ambulance that arrived, and eventually, with my husband, I reunited with Janice-chan, who had rushed over. Thank you for today, Janice. Both Mommy and I are safe. As my niece happily nodded at my words, my husband and I smiled at each other, resolved to continue supporting Vega and Janice closely. Later on, my brother was sentenced to prison. Vega divorced him and demanded $5,000 in compensation and $100,000 in child support. Since my parents and I cut ties with my brother, his future life, filled with debt, will be tough even after he's released. My husband, Max, and I continue to live happily, occasionally taking care of my niece. Janice, are you lonely when Mommy's at work? Not at all, because soon, I'll be a big sister. And a month later, with the discovery of a new life through prenatal checkups, I finally understood the meaning of my niece's words.